Okay, this is video number 8 of the Kouri Richins coverage. And by the way, there's no trial coverage today because I did not watch anything from yesterday. I didn't do any news coverage. You know there are resources you can go to if you need like the daily scoop of what happened in court. But I will tell you, I spent a good portion of yesterday consulting other experts. And by experts, I mean coworkers who were also equally twisted by this trial. And I've got some interesting feedback. Now, the panel of experts that I consulted were a mixture of people. So there are people who are watching this trial absolutely like want the daily tea, totally are wrapped up in it and have questions. But there were other people who were just regular kind of true crimer people who just love gossip and they love to hear stories. And they were sort of hearing some of the details for the first time. One of the people, one of the newcomers who's just hearing about this, she's asking questions. And so I mentioned that the defense attorney keeps going and talking about THC gummies. And her first question was, why? What's that got to do with anything? She's like, it wasn't THC that killed him. I'm like, no, there wasn't even any in his system. And she's like, but you don't die from it anyway. And she's like, it's gummies. Why would they talk about that in a drug overdose case? Because she immediately goes to the place where THC, especially in gummy form, is so widely used recreationally. She's like, everybody takes that, don't they? And I was kind of like, well, I hate to admit, but shh. Anyway, she's like, it's almost legal everywhere now. Like there's very few places you can go where it's not legal. You can't throw a rock without hitting somebody that's tried it. Like it's like coming home from work and having a glass of wine to relax. Some people come home from work and they pop a gummy. Like that's how casual this usage is. And it's silly to have an entire defense structured around, did you find the gummies? Why didn't you find the gummies? Where are the gummies? Did you look in the cupboard? Did you look in? It's ridiculous. But let's talk about the other drugs, right? So there's been this debate throughout this trial. The drug dealer, the alleged drug dealer himself, said he thought he was selling them Oxy. The housekeeper's like, no, I really thought I was buying fentanyl. Kouri just said she needed something really strong, stronger, heavy pain medication. She was saying she was buying it for one of her clients. So what the drug was and the why are two very important things here. Because let's go back to where Eric, they found in his nightstand drawer an empty prescription bottle for hydrocodone, which had been prescribed all the way back in 2016. So it was 10 years old, and then it expired in 2020. It was still in his nightstand drawer. So yes, it's possible he could have used that as like a carrier to like carry other pills around in. It could be that he does like I do, where I sometimes get prescribed something and I don't finish the prescription the whole way through. So it sits in my medicine cabinet and then like I twist my ankle and I go, oh, thank God I got a hydrocodone in the medicine cabinet, right? So there could have been a number of different stories here. The point being is that my colleagues and I all agree, should take this for what it's worth because I got some really smart colleagues. We're all sort of agreeing that if Eric was the one that was suffering from pain, Eric would have been able to get the substances himself, meaning this. He went to the doctor once upon a time for hydrocodone. So either he had an accident, like he fell down, he hurt himself, he broke something, twisted something, done something, or he had some chronic pain, which isn't unusual considering the business he's in. The doctor prescribed hydrocodone, which is really essentially, and if you're a medical professional, please come in and correct me, but this is basically like the amped up version of taking like a Motrin, right? Like this is a stronger version of, I think it's ibuprofen, and it offers longer, stronger pain relief. Okay, and I've been prescribed them plenty of times for different things. So first, there would be doctor's records. There would be medical records that show that Eric complained about pain or some type of injury to his doctor, got a prescription. So there would be evidence of that, right? We know that. If Eric continued to have pain, so in the business he's in, if this was just regular daily pain from lifting, carrying, operating these machinery, if he had constant pain, there would be record of him continuing to go back to the doctor and saying, doctor, I'm still experiencing this. Or if he'd had any other injury, there would be record of him going back to the doctor. It would be elevated, right? You would see a pattern of, okay, let's try this first, then let's try this, let's try this. At some point, if this continued, the doctor would recommend some type of probably surgery to relieve him of this pain. So you don't go from hydrocodone, and you certainly don't go from THC gummies to popping fentanyl. Like that's just not, those are not Those two things are not the same. They are not connected. There would be something in the middle. And Eric, having, again, already been to the doctor, he's in a career that is prone to injury and prone to persistent pain. He probably would be able to go back to the doctor and say, give me something stronger. The doctor would probably give him like an oxycodone next, right? Which is much stronger, right? We know oxy is very strong. It would be much stronger. And oxycodone is like temporary relief. Like, it hurts now, it's acute pain. Take this and relieve the pain. He could elevate to OxyContin, which, by the way, you can also get from a doctor with a prescription. You can get OxyContin. Now, OxyContin would be long-term relief, right? Like, that's kind of like a 24-hour, you take that and it's a long-term relief. And it's for people who do suffer from chronic pain. So if this is Eric, if Eric is suffering from chronic pain, he would have been able to get these drugs himself. Like, there's two paths that the defense keeps trying to take. It's like, well, he was, he had these drug tendencies, but then he's using THC. So he's obviously a recreational drug user, which a lot of people are. A lot of people, again, take THC. They prefer THC over alcohol. And so that's probably what he did. But neither of those two things, like, you don't go from, I'm taking THC gummies, to, I need my wife to call the housekeeper, to call her friend, to call his friend, to get me some fentanyl. If Eric really was in some sort of pain, I'm not sure he would need to go to his wife. Let's do it this way. Eric's business, I'm quite sure his largest client are different construction sites, right? He's probably putting custom stonework into homes and those kinds of things, right? So he knows a lot of people in the construction industry. A lot of construction workers have these chronic injuries. If, hypothetical situation, Eric was in pain and needed something for his pain, he stood a much easier chance of going to one of the any 50 people he comes in contact with every day and says, do you have something? Do you got something? Do you know a guy? Stood a much better chance of doing that instead of asking his wife to procure him an illegal substance. If Eric was such a risk taker, if Eric was living on the edge, why wouldn't he risk breaking the law instead of asking his wife to do it for him? None of it makes any sense. And just one thing really quick before I go. I know I've bashed on the defense attorneys. Someone has come into my comments and asked, like, are they the public defenders? I don't know. I'll look it up when I get home. But they might be the public defenders. But even that being said, there are good public defenders and there are not so good public defenders. I remember when I was covering the Brian Walsh trial, I thought his attorney was very good. And then someone said that's the public defender. So he had a very good public defender. Like, there are really good public defenders who are passionate about their work, who, whether or not they believe their client is innocent or not, does not matter. They put on a very strong defense and they use whatever evidence they have available to them and they give it their best shot. So there are times where you do get a really good public defender. I don't know if these ladies are from the public defender's office or not, but they suck ass. Like, they're just not good in court. They might be good at filing paperwork and doing other things that are strategic legal defenses, but standing up in court and questioning witnesses is not their forte. And it could be that Kouri, much like Donna Adelson, is pulling the strings and telling them, no, this is how I want you to defend me. And so their hands are a little tied when it comes to what they're doing and saying in court. I don't know, just my opinion. I fly home tonight. I will be back at home with my notes and my research, and I can give you more true coverage tomorrow.